Hello, my spooky friends. This is John, your host of Dairyland Frights, and welcome to another episode Paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. And again, guys and girls and my spooky friends out there, I have so many great guests on. I am so blessed, and I am blessed today with having Mike, who's a Michael Walters, who's a paranormal investigator, and many other things, which we will go through. And I'm excited to have him on the show. Welcome. Michael.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Yeah. So let me ask you, do you like to be called Michael or Mike?
I'll go by Michael.
All right, Michael. Great. So let's start out here. You are many things, Michael. You are a paranormal investigator, a soulmate, clairvoyant, pagan. You deal with ghost tube and alphabet readings and obviously the paranormal. So let's go through that. That's a lot because you have a site up, which I will share with my spooky friends, that you talk a little bit about, some of the things you do with the paranormal as well as other things to help with healing and other things that can help people, and not only help people, but spook people too. That's why I have you on the podcast. So kind of tell me about yourself and tell me about a little bit about all those things I kind of mentioned.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I would say to start off is I'm me. What I mean by that is I'm a soul having a human experience in this world.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of platforms ask for labels. They want you to label yourself,
Right.
and people kind of forget who they really are. And a lot of people don't know who they really are because of those labels.
Yeah.
So I'm basically, the best way to describe myself to start out is I'm a soul having a human experience in this world, in this universe.
I love that. And if you don't mind, I got this off of your ancestorsfire.com, your website, about your wife and you, Rebecca,
Yes.
your wife. And let me read this, and if please chime in, Michael, to be like, that's wrong, or we changed that, or whatever. And I love this. This is so great. So it says, Michael and Rebecca are soulmates whose love has spanned many lifetimes in many eras and many places throughout the universe. I mean, that's awesome. The couple has vast experience in many areas of life and are now in unique journey together, exploring and discovering many areas of the universe. In addition to being on a journey as a couple, they each are on a unique spiritual journey as well. Oh, man, that is touching, and I absolutely love that. Could you kind of explain that to my spooky friends, what that means?
Yeah, I'm getting chills just hearing you read it, thinking about it. I already told you about how I viewed myself. And Rebecca, we've been together, married for 25 years now.
Awesome.
In this lifetime, and she's on her own unique journey too. She's her own unique soul having a human experience in this world, and we have, through our journeys together and individually in the past couple years, have discovered and are learning about past lifetimes and how we knew each other in past lifetimes. And it seems like we always seem to find each other as we go through each journey in this world that we make. And it's important that we focus on our own individual journeys and strengthen ourselves as we walk and journey through the world.
Mm-hmm.
But when we come together as a couple and as one, the energy is just so intensified that magic just happens, is the best way I can put that. Just magical.
That is beautiful. I get chills too. I mean, my wife and I have been married 25 years. So not only that's a big thing, especially in this crazy world with all these different things going on, but also your spiritual journey and finding someone you can not only connect over lifetime, but still have that connection. That's amazing, and to me, inspired. I think a lot of people view whether relationships or paranormal, whatever, it's hard to find that special person that not only you're in tune with spiritually, but also in tune with other things, right?
That
To
that
find somebody that you're totally, like I said, so when I say you're melded together, I don't know the right words for it. I'm not as eloquent
yeah.
as you,
I mean,
Michael. Yeah, go ahead.
that's correct. I mean, we both have different journeys, but we're
Yeah.
still experiencing them together, and it's amazing just to be able to watch her grow and develop and journey in her spiritual self.
Mhm.
And it's the
Mhm.
same for her with me. You know, she's got her own different gifts that's totally different than mine,
Mhm.
and mine are totally different than hers. So she came to me one time and told me at the beginning of us starting this journey together, not our human experience journey, but our spiritual journey over the past couple
Mhm.
years. And she didn't know who she was. She said, I've been a
Mhm.
mom, I'm a wife, I was a
Mhm.
nurse, I was a homemaker,
Mhm.
but that's not me. That's
Mhm.
just what I was perceived as. But that's not who I really am. And I need to figure out
Yeah.
who I really am because I have to love myself first before I can love anybody else.
Yeah. Yes. That I love that. And I preach that too on my podcast. Because, it also deals with mental health in a way, right? I mean, mental health is a big thing that people are finally looking at. And whether you view mental health as a spiritual journey or just something that you're trying to get better or whatever, the main thing is you have to love yourself before you can love anyone else.
It's
And that's hard for some
it's like
people because, yeah,
it's
go
like
ahead. Yeah.
the airplane. You know, you're on an airplane. What did they tell you to do when the mask drops? Put it on yourself first, because you can't help
Hmm.
anybody else if you're not taking care of yourself first.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, absolutely right. Now, just kind of going through, like I said, with information off your website, Rebecca is a practicing numerologist. Does she still do that?
She's still doing that, yes.
All right. Could you explain that to my spooky friends? Because that is something I don't think a lot of people are aware of anymore and don't really practice that. So could you give them like just a general idea of what that means to be a numerologist?
Yeah, I'll do the best that I can with it. She is more familiar with it than me,
Sure.
obviously, because she's the one that practices it. But basically, the universe is made up of numbers, and everything is number related. And for example, everyone has their own unique number
Hmm.
that can be based off their birth date. It kind of coincides with astrology. So she can take your birth date and add it up and give you a number, and that number will tell you something about yourself.
Oh, sure. Sure.
I think it's the
And
best way, and it's a whole lot more
yeah,
than that. I think that's the most simple
yeah,
way that I could put
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. That I love that because that's the simple way of putting it. If my spooky friends, maybe I will do an episode on it, and maybe I'll have you back on the show and we can talk about it more in depth. But yes, that's kind of the general way of what it's all about, and can be really revealing. I've had mediums on, Michael, and I've had clairvoyants and so on and so forth on, and it really too. One thing I want to stress is, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, whether you're going on a spiritual journey and whatever you're using to get you there or to help get you there or to continue on that spiritual journey, you have to have an open mind, right? You have
Oh, absolutely.
can't be closed minded. You got to be like accept some things that okay, well that's a little strange, but let me take a look at it. And you believe what you want to believe, but the point is you can't be closed-minded and go on your spiritual journey and expect it to work. It's not going to work, right? It just
Not at all.
no, not at all. And that to me is unbelievable that people still don't believe, still don't. believe it, I guess, or however you want to say that. Now, one of the things too I noticed, you're a practicing genealogist. And you've done many research and everything like that. That must be fascinating because I love that stuff. Well, I'm a big history guy, and they kind of go hand in hand about really what's out there. So could you explain that with genealogy, how you go about doing that research and what have you kind of discovered on your way?
Sure. The genealogy part started when I was a child. I would sit on the living room floor of my grandmother's house and just quiz her about birth dates and anniversary dates and things like that for people in our family. And I would just write it down on a piece of paper and keep it in a little notebook and just go back and read it. And that was back in the 80s, 70s, 80s when I was a child.
Hmm.
And ever since then, we've gone to the technology age. I've been on Ancestry and have developed a tree of almost 10,000 people so far, family,
Ooh, wow.
that I've just done research on. And it's kind of what led me to start the Ancestors Fire, is the whole ancestry part of studying your ancestors and learning. Because one of the biggest things about that is we don't pass along information like we
Mm,
used to. We don't hand down stories. We don't hand down information about our relatives and our families and about
mm,
how to live and survive in this world
mm.
the way our ancestors did. We don't get those
Right.
stories anymore. We don't get that training on maybe how to can or how to hunt or things like that. It's not handed down in most cases.
Mm. Yes, and I absolutely agree with that because that is something that people kind of take for granted. And my mom, before she died, she wanted to find out a lot about her family and everything, and she found out some interesting things and some kind of terrible things. But it's still part of your family tree, and it's still part of your journey to understand, hey, I had some really interesting ancestors who did this to survive, or whatever you want to say, and some ancestors who did things that maybe weren't such the greatest things
Yeah,
to do in order to survive. And you learn from that, right? You put
right.
those together and try to make the best person you are and to learn from that.
I grew up in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia.
Hmm.
And there's a town there called Harper's Ferry. It's the lowest point in West Virginia. And
Okay.
the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers meet there. And that helps create the town to be prone to flooding. So we would take school trips to the town. Also, after I graduated from school, I'd like to go visit the town. And one of the buildings there, it's an old historical town. It's where John Brown did his raid before the Civil War. And the Appalachian Trail runs through there. So one of the old buildings there had flood stage markers on it for each year they had the major floods and how high it got. And I was always fascinated by those from when I was a kid until I was grown up. Never knew what fascinated me to it. So as I was studying and researching my genealogy, I found out that my third great grandfather in 1864 died in the Civil War in a battle not too far from that town.
Hmm.
And that his wife, my third great grandmother, lived on a little island out in that town with her mother, my fourth great grandmother.
Hmm.
And in 1870, one of the biggest floods that ever came through there washed away the island and the houses on it. And my third great grandmother and fourth great grandmother drowned in that flood.
Oh, wow.
And I never knew about it. I was never told about it. It was never
Sure.
handed down. And so now that I've done my research, now I know why I was drawn to that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very, very interesting because I think people go through their lives and they're like, why do I want to go, like, I don't know, let's say, why do I want to go to Texas? I don't know. There's something calling me to going to, I don't know, Texas, right? Um, and they don't do the research, they just go, they do it. But then maybe they do research, maybe they find out, oh, I don't know, maybe they had an ancestor at the Alamo. who knows, right? But you got to
Right.
do that research, and you got to figure out why, to me, it's like, why am I being drawn to this area and everything? So, North Carolina is a beautiful place. I've been there numerous times. Unfortunately, I've been there on business, but I've had the opportunity to walk around North Carolina, South Carolina. You do a lot of hiking. I do a lot of hiking because I love the woods. I love exploring, to see the beauty of nature, to feel the nature, feel the magic of nature. Um, and I noticed too on your hiking adventures, that's really amazing. So, what are you looking to do, Michael, when you go on a hiking adventure? What are you looking to do? Just soak up the magic, or is there something else you're looking for?
The biggest thing when we go on our hiking adventures is just the connecting and grounding with nature and the universe, just getting away from what we perceive as the everyday world and the stress and everything else that comes with it, and escaping into the forest, reuniting with nature, reuniting with the universe, and just grounding and absorbing it all in.
Yeah.
We went
And that,
we went out there yesterday and saw a bear for the first time, 3 rattlesnakes, and just it was just an amazing adventure through the woods yesterday that we
yeah,
had.
yeah. And my spooky friends, when when this episode comes out, I will put the link to his site, ancestorsfire.com. But if you want to go on, like I said, it's theancestorsfire.com. If you want to go on it right after this episode airs, but also, like I said, I'll have the links in there. You can check it out. There's so many amazing things, but this is a paranormal podcast. So, Michael, let's get into the paranormal. But let me ask you first. My first question is, what interested you in the paranormal? What drew you to it?
Well, this is going to be good to start off with. I
All right.
didn't even like the paranormal as a child. Anything that came out with
Okay.
the word horror in it, I ran the other way. And
Yeah.
believe it or not, that's coming from somebody who was born on October the
Nice.
and now I'm like, I wish I would have known then what I know now, because I would have
Mhm.
really celebrated my birthday instead of being afraid of everything.
Yeah.
But what got me into it is actually Rebecca. Once we got married, she was always interested in it, and I suddenly became interested too for some reason. So,
Hmm.
so,
That,
so
yeah.
we've been, she's kind of helped me along that path of accepting the paranormal and learning about the paranormal. And now I'm just trying to do whatever I can to learn more and grow more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, have you ever had when you were like, tell me about your first paranormal experience. Like, you must have had one, even though you weren't really into it. A lot of people are like, I'm not really into it. But I remember when I had one, whether it be younger or recent, just before you became interested in the paranormal.
I had a couple experiences when I was younger that never really stood out to me, but it's some of those experiences that I was at an age where it would be difficult for me to remember, but for some reason it stands out in my brain.
Hmm.
I remember one time walking down into the basement of the house I was living in and seeing what it looked like a ghost, at least in my mind, in the corner, and taking off running back up the stairs and trying to be reassured that there was nothing there, but I know what I saw.
Hmm.
For some reason that sticks in my mind. Another one would be an experience with a UFO that I supposedly saw over the town, that I remember seeing, the town that I lived in. That sticks in my mind too, that I saw one, but I don't know exactly what happened with it. Those are some early memories that I have. I could tell you one of the biggest experiences that I've had was in this home that my wife Rebecca and I had before we moved here to this part of North Carolina. It was in an old farmland, and once the people there had passed on, they divided it up into 5 plots, and they had 5 homes on it. And we bought one of the homes, and while we were there, I actually wrote a blog on this too as well, on my website, but my wife Rebecca would see a black cat in the hallway run into our bedroom. She would see it from time to time, but we didn't even own a black cat. And then when she'd go to the bedroom, it wouldn't be there. My children's toys in the basement would turn on for no reason. And we even took the batteries out of them and they still would turn on.
Oh.
I would lay in my children were very young at the time, and I would lay on my son's floor on a mattress trying to help them stay asleep. And I would hear a voice in the hallway calling my name saying, Michael, come here, come here. It would be something like that.
Yeah.
But there would be nobody out there. And then the biggest one was one of my daughters had the covers pulled off of her, and there was nobody in the room when that happened.
Yeah.
So there's been some experiences that I've had before the spiritual journey that I'm on now, and that I can see things more clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. That to me is the most frightening when just things that you're trying to explain and you can't explain them, and you're trying to go through them, and like taking the batteries out of the toys. Like, okay, now it shouldn't work, but there's still something happening here. So there's something affecting, something in this house, or there's something affecting, this toy or object, whatever you want to say. And that's to me is like, wow, that's frightening. And then the covers ripped off the bed. That's like, I'm out.
Yeah, that was one of the. We didn't move because of those things, but we eventually did move, and that was towards the end, right before we moved when that happened. So we really didn't experience anything beyond that.
Yeah. Did you ever feel though in the house it was mean, or did you ever feel like evil, or do you just,
No,
it's just what it is?
I can say that I never felt. I guess the best way to put it is I think the uneasiness and the being scared part was because we didn't know what it was. It wasn't necessarily that what it was evil or bad or anything. We just didn't know what was going on. And the fear of not knowing, I guess, is what impacted us the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Because it was one of those where different things were happening to us individually, and we were for the longest time like, okay, we're not going to say anything to anybody. And then finally, when one of us started talking, the rest of us were like, well, okay, if you think that happened, well, this happened too. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things I've gone through your Twitter page and stuff, and you have some very scary EVPs on there. So tell me, Michael, about some of your investigations, and like, have you ever had ones that just really like, okay, this is this is not good. I'm getting out of here as soon as I can.
No, I haven't really had anything where I needed to get out of here.
Okay, good.
I can tell you that I'll go into it with the mindset that everybody has a voice, including in the spirit world. Everybody has a reason, and sometimes things that we perceive as evil or bad may just be something that's misunderstood. I'm not saying that those things don't exist. I just haven't necessarily experienced them face to face, and I don't know what I would do if I did. Because for the most part, I'm trying to communicate and learn, and I'm trying to go more towards the ancestral route and historical route of mainly I've been doing these EVPs in my yard, my backyard, my side yard, because it's all energy. It's all energy related. Yeah. We're all energy. And I'm trying to learn from the spirits of the land. I'm trying to learn from the ancestors, not only the history of the land I live on, but their history as well. Kind of goes back to tying into the genealogy thing. The woods the forest that we were talking about earlier that I do the hiking adventures, I had some contacts with some spirits there. I had some contacts with some indigenous spirits, some Cherokee spirits who had told me that they were the spirits of the land. They watched the land there, and they wanted me to pass along to people about the importance of knowing the history of the land that you live on, the land that you visit. Remember the people that lived there before you, remember the ancestors that were there before you, that they did work on this land. They may have bled on that land. They may have died on that land. And now you have the opportunity to experience that land for yourself. And it's your responsibility now to take care of it. It's your responsibility now to protect it and pass it along to the next person that comes along. And so that's why I kind of set out here around my home, was to respect and honor the land and to find out who's here and why they're here and what I can do to help them.
Yeah. That to me is like just so forgotten by people, because they were, the Native Americans who were here first. They built this land. They did, and not to get too political or whatever, but how would you like it if you were in your own home with your wife Rebecca, and somebody just comes in the house and says, "Get out," and you go like, "No, I'm not getting out," and they shove a gun in your face, say, "Get out now, or I'm going to kill you and your family." Like, that's pretty traumatic. And imagine that spread over, tribes all over our nation. It just was terrible. And I always feel bad about it because I'm like, hey, couldn't we done this a little bit better instead of just stealing things from them and just all the terrible things we did to Native Americans, and to have them still want to help and still reach out to us through a spirit form or a real life physical form and saying, hey, we're here to help. We're in this too. So, come on, let's figure out a way to put our differences behind us and make this a great land we all can live in and continue to enjoy for future generations. So, yeah, that's just amazing to me. One of the other things too I notice is you have met some spirits of witches, and I think that's really fascinating too. So, what did happen once you met some witches and stuff? How did you feel about that?
Well, the witches, I'm still working on developing a rapport with them. I have not been able to get them to actually speak to me as of yet through the
Okay.
EVP, but I've been made aware of their presence around me. I
Okay.
have discovered that one of them was one of my ancestors named Ruby. It's actually on the EVP session that I did. And what's
Okay.
interesting about that is about 6 months ago, I received the call. I messaged back and forth with one of my daughters on the app. What's the site? WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And I received a phone call on there from somebody named Ruby. Had no idea who it was. Didn't recognize the number. Didn't get it. And then Rebecca got one a few weeks ago from somebody named Ruby. And then I got another one from somebody named Ruby a couple weeks after that. So I'm out there doing this EVP session, and I've already been made aware that the witches had been around me. And then I was told to call Ruby. It came across specifically on the EVP, call Ruby. And I was sitting there and I just paused. I hesitated. I didn't know what to say. I was taken aback because I'd already received those phone calls from Ruby on my phone. And if I ever didn't believe in any of this, that would have made me believe, because there was no way that anybody could have come across there and said, call Ruby, because the only people that knew that I had received those calls was me and Rebecca.
Interesting.
And I do know on my ancestry that I do have a great, I can't remember the number, but a great grandmother who was killed as a witch in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But I think the whole thing about witches is programming, so to speak, where we're programmed to think witches are bad and evil, and that's just not the case.
No.
Not at all. So when you asked me how did I feel about that, I felt great to have a couple witches beside of me, because somebody came up to me and I was doing this back in the 1600s, I'd be burned at the stake for what I'm doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so I was actually pretty excited to have a couple witches standing beside of me.
Yeah. And, that's funny that you mentioned that, because I've had practicing witches on, and it's Hollywood. I get it. You got to put the scare factor out there, and you got to make them all evil, and they're in the basement, covered in blood and a pentagram, and they're summoning demons and all this stuff, right? And you're like, no,
Yeah.
not really. Most of them are there to help you or willing to reach out and find a different way to assist you in something, right? I
But
mean, they're not there to take your soul.
no, it's all about most. I mean, most witches, from what I understand and from what I have experienced and come across and met and talked to, it's all about connecting with the universe,
Yeah,
connecting with the earth, being part of the earth, being part of Gaia. It's not about, like you said, taking your soul and all that kind
yeah,
of stuff. It's about a relationship with the earth. It's about a relationship with the universe.
yeah. And I think a lot, there are some people which is referred as Wiccans. I've interviewed practicing Wiccans too, and they're just like you said, they're about not only spiritual journeys, but also like, hey, we're destroying this beautiful planet, with Gaia, and we need to do something about it. We need to stop polluting the air and polluting the water, and we need to protect it and love it, because it's we only have one planet, really, and people don't really think about it that way.
We're all connected.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's connected, and not just humans. We're all connected. We're connected to the trees. We're connected to the animals. We're all connected, and we have to get back to the place where we understand that we're all on this planet together. We're all
Mhm.
connected together, and the only way that we get through this and make it through this is by loving one another and taking care of one another. Whether it's taking care of
Absolutely,
another human or taking care of the tree outside in your yard,
absolutely.
we have
I
that
couldn't
responsibility to
agree.
do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Michael. And especially if you have children, you don't want them to get a world where it's just dark and you can't breathe the air or drink the water. And like, no, you want to give them a better place. And I think that gets lost in some people's world. And I get it; it's busy. You got a lot of things going on, but hey, it's okay. You can do little things. Like I tell my spooky friends, hey, you know what? Maybe pick up the litter around your yard. Like that's a little thing. Maybe plant another tree, plant some bushes, or whatever. They're just little things. You don't have to go out and be like, man, now I got to give all my money to all these organizations to save the planet. No, you can do little things like you said, go on a hike and just
That's right.
let yourself be open, right? Let yourself be open and just soak up the magical essence of the forest, and just realize, look at this is awesome. Look at this beauty. and
Yeah.
i and I think it just gets lost in people. And I get it, people want the scariness, and they in paranormal podcasts, but that's why I brought you on too, because I think people have to understand that it's just not about being scared. It's also about opening your mind to different things. And if
Well,
you don't go on hikes, right, just do it for a little bit. You don't have to go like with Michael. I'm sure you go on very extensive hikes with Rebecca. Maybe just take a lap. You know what I mean? Just
yeah.
go in for a little bit, look
Well, that's
around, take a seat. Right. Go ahead.
the trail we hike on. That's our favorite trail, and I've had a lot of different types of spiritual experiences that's happened on that trail, and I've met a lot of different spirits on that trail.
Mm-hmm.
It is a 8 mile round trip hike up a
Mm.
mountain, and
Wow.
we always tell each other we go into it with the mindset that we're going to go as far as we can, but if we can't go the whole 4 miles up the mountain, we'll go until we don't want to go any further, until we feel like we're
Mm-hmm.
not supposed to go any further, and we'll turn around and go back. It's just the matter of being out there and experience it
Yeah.
is what's
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, tell me about some of the spirits that you have met on on your hike. Kind of just kind of give me just an idea of some who you met. You've already met some Indian spirits, Native American spirits, but
Yeah, it's been mostly indigenous. I have met the first two spirits I ever met on the hike. And I guess I should back up and say, when I started my spiritual journey that I'm on now, I
Mhm.
started by meditating. And as I
Hmm.
got deeper into my meditations, I was able to travel in my meditations, and I was able to meet spirits in my meditations. I was able to meet my spirit guides in my meditations. And as I developed that, as I went on these hikes, the very first time that I got an inkling that there was a spirit around me was when I met the indigenous Cherokee that I had mentioned before about taking care of the land. And I saw them. I'd stopped, and there's this waterfall. It's about a mile in on the hike. It's not a very large waterfall, but I don't know the exact height of it off the top of my head, but I saw them walk out from behind the waterfall, and they went on up into the forest. And I told Rebecca that I saw them. And then that night when I got home, I went into my meditation, and my spirit guide took me back to the forest, and I met with them. And that's when they had given me the information about taking care of the land, take care of it as if it's your own property, pick up after yourself, and so on. So I met them a couple times. I also met an indigenous family at another area of the hike. There were two families. They were around a campfire, and I actually spoke with them while I was there. They were traveling from one village to another because, as you said, they were being displaced.
Uh-huh.
And I remember one of the wives, I would encounter her later at another part of my hike where she was being taken captive, and she was actually being taken captive by Indigenous. She was white. She was a settler, and she had been left behind by her husband, and the Indigenous had taken her in. She actually wasn't a captive as I first thought when I first saw the scene playing out in front of me. I would later learn one of the Indigenous people came and spoke to me and told me that they were helping her and that she would eventually become his wife, and they were one of the families that I met earlier on at the one part of the trail at the beginning of the trail.
Wow.
And I've met them a couple different times on the trail. I've met old prospector.
Oh, nice.
And I've discovered that there's a portal at that waterfall. Yeah.
Okay, tell me more. I like to hear
Well,
that one.
I'm still working on that one. I want to get to the waterfall more often. I have seen different things come in and out of the waterfall. I actually saw in a meditation where I was taken to behind the waterfall to see where the portal was. I wanted to go through the door, but my spirit guide wouldn't let me at the time. But so, yeah, I want to learn more about that. I think there's a couple of them there. I definitely know that one's there, but I think there's another one up on top of the mountain that I need to research some more. And then yesterday when I was out there, I discovered a few months ago, and I did a video on this, I discovered some old railroad spikes and railroad ties that had come up from where the rain had washed away the soil on the path. And I did some researching, and I found out that there was an old forestry railroad that ran along the trail, was an old forestry railroad that ran along the stream on the trail from back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And they actually timbered the land up through there. And then when they were done, they pulled the railroad tracks up, but they didn't take all the parts out of it. I guess some of the parts got left behind, and there's a little area in the woods there that's kind of a circled out area that's used as people used to camp there a lot. That used to be where there were some houses built for the workers. And as I was going through there yesterday, I pulled my phone out and did the EVP, and I have to edit it, and I need to go back and listen to it because obviously I don't hear everything that's said, and some of the things that's said when I'm just listening to it, when I'm doing it, I may not perceive correctly as the exact words. So I have to go back and listen to it. But I do know that I met a spirit named Doug and a spirit named Ed from Pennsylvania. They told me they were from Pennsylvania and that they had come there to work on the railroad. So that's some of
Oh,
the experience I've had on there.
wow. That is really interesting to me because again, we've always said this, and Michael, you know this, is sometimes you're out there and you're trying to look for something and just nothing happens, right? And you can be there for hours and just you're just not connecting. And then there are other times where it's just, man, it's just everything is working out. You just go in and just seems to work out that way, that you're getting EVPs, you're seeing spirits, you're whatever, having just a great time dealing with that. And though I want to kind of flip the script here, unfortunately, there are some negative energies in the forest, like Native American tales. One of the biggest ones that I covered was the Wendigo, which is nothing you want to go up against or see, as well as skinwalkers. Again, that's something that is very, uh, how do you say, evil. Have you ever had an experience, Michael, where some type of cryptid or some type of spirit or something was extremely negative?
I wouldn't say negative. I mentioned that I believe there was a portal on top of the mountain where we hike.
Yeah.
And Rebecca and I were walking through there on the trail, and we both kind of got a weird feeling like that we were being watched.
Okay.
And we saw something black, and it wasn't a bear.
Mm.
We actually had never seen a bear on that trail until yesterday, but it wasn't a bear, and it went running through the woods, but then it just stopped, like it disappeared. And we didn't feel threatened, but we didn't feel like it was something that we were meant to meet or wanted to meet at that point. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
what that was. It could very well have been something negative,
Mhm.
especially since it ran away from us. And I don't know where it went to just disappear.
Yeah.
And we couldn't see it or didn't hear it anymore in the woods or the forest. Even when we stepped out in to try to see what it was, we couldn't find anything.
Yeah. Now, have you or Rebecca, ever had a spirit attach themselves to you? Like you've come home and all of a sudden you realize, I think we brought something home with us.
No, not that we're aware of. We are
Okay.
very careful about that. We've seen and heard enough stories about that where we try to make sure we're protected when we do the things we do. We try to make sure that we have protection around us and make sure we're also cleansed before we leave. Make sure that we tell them that they just need to stay and not come with us unless it's a spirit we want to have come with us, because that can be the case sometimes too.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. How do you protect yourselves? Because that's always interesting to me, because all my paranormal investigators and everyone else in the paranormal does things differently. What do you do to protect yourself and Rebecca?
The biggest thing I do, and I learned this in my meditations, is I meditate before I do anything spiritual, any type of spiritual work. One,
Yeah.
mainly to have the open mind, first of all, but the second part of that would be I had learned a meditation when I first started about where I've been able to journey and have a wolf spirit put around me to protect me. And I take that wolf spirit with me whenever I do any of my investigations or any of my spiritual hikes. There was another important factor, and that's my spirit guides. My spirit guides, I make sure they're around me too, and they're with me when I go. There was a meditation I did when I was first learning to meditate, and it was a guided meditation. And I can't remember the name of the lady I was listening to do it, but we were going into Ireland, into the woods, into a forest there in the meditation. And when I got into the forest, I seen looked like a gnome off to the left. And as soon as I seen it, my spirit guide came to me and took me out of the meditation and wouldn't let me go any further, and told me that they did that because they were protecting me, because I wasn't developed enough or ready enough to encounter a gnome or to deal with the experience of meeting them.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of the puck wedgie. That is a nasty cryptid. That is something that looks like a gnome, but what they do is they uh, kind of hypnotize you and everything, and then they'll take you someplace, and well, basically, just to be open, they're gonna kill you. Um,
Yeah.
and they do it very nasty, nasty ways. And that's just I did an episode on it with a spooky friend of mine, and she did research on it. She was like, yeah, I never want to meet one of these things because they are really nasty, evil creatures. So that's interesting. Maybe it wasn't that, but it's interesting that
It,
your spirit guy was like, hey, you don't want to mess with this. You're not ready for that.
it's very well possible. And, I'm very, what's the best word, new to this. And I have not done many investigations outside of my own backyard or that forest.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably a lot of places I can go where I can meet something like that, and I need to be prepared for it and make sure that
Yeah,
I am protected. So yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So I know those. I know those things are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. They typically. Well, let me ask you this: where have you gone hiking? It sounds like you've been on a lot of different places. So, if you could tell me kind of those places and what's your favorite place you went hiking?
Our favorite place we go to is a trail called Slate Rock. Well, the top of the mountain's called Slate Rock, but the trail's called Pilot Cove Loop, and it's
Okay.
in Pisgah Forest here in North Carolina.
Oh,
And we
wow.
live pretty much 15 minutes from there. And we're real close to the Blue Ridge Parkway. So there are thousands of trails, thousands of waterfalls, thousands of acres of land to just go explore. Another area is DuPont State Forest. We've been there a couple times. That's where the movie The Last of the Mohicans was filmed.
Oh,
And they have a
beautiful.
lot of waterfalls and trails there as well. So those are some of our favorite places around here to go to.
I love that. I gotta check that out. My wife, unfortunately, cannot come with me because she has some health issues. But I go visit my friend in Colorado, and we go on all these different places, and just so gorgeous. So here's one thing, though, I am concerned, Michael, about you and Rebecca, is you are aware when people have been hiking out, there have been a lot of disappearances where people just, for whatever reason, never seen again. Does that ever cross your mind when you're out there going, what if I go through a portal? Or what if something comes and grabs me and my wife and I'm never seen again? I mean, never cross your mind?
I mean, I can't say hasn't crossed my mind before, but it's not something I dwell on or ponder on. It's not something that could have happened, yeah, but we get up each day to live that day, and
Yeah.
it goes back to what our life journey is. We all select what our life journey is going to be
Mhm.
before we even come to the world, to the earth. And
Yeah.
if that's our life journey, if that's my exit point, then I chose that and I have to
Yeah.
accept that. If it's part of my journey to where it's not an exit point yet, but it's part of my journey to go through a portal and experience something different, then that's my journey and I need to learn from it. I
Yeah.
can't walk in fear. I can be prepared. I can be
Yeah.
ready for anything, but it's part of the life experience that I had already planned out before I even came here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you also, I noticed in in some of your bio information too, that with being you're a clairvoyant, is that something you're still learning or still practicing? Is that something new or
It's newer. I'm still learning it.
yeah,
It's the simple fact that I am able to sense and see spirits and things
mm,
before they
yeah,
happen or when they happen. I can't say that I'm a total clairvoyant medium,
mhm,
so to speak.
yeah,
because I just can't see spirits all the time. It's just at certain times. But it's like you said, it's something I'm learning and developing as I'm doing these EVP sessions. I'm learning to identify when spirits are next to me. And now it's even going further is when sometimes I know which spirits are next to me. I'm learning to be able to discern that. So it's all a growth. It's all a journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of mediums and clairvoyants who have actually gone out and practiced it and have learned under, some very important and elite clairvoyants and mediums, their main things they always tell people is, and you're doing this excellent, is, keeping an open mind, meditating, making sure that, you keep protected, because sometimes you will let some things in that are not positive. And whatever that might be. It doesn't have to be a spirit. It could just be something in your mind, just trying to tell you not to go there, and not in a protective way, but maybe something in a negative way. But that's just something that I've been trying to do, because all of them told me, every last one, Michael told me, is that everyone has the skill. It's kind of like you have the skill, and you're kind of pretty much everyone's born with it. Some people are born with something a little more extensive, but they said you do have it. You just gotta let it out. And some people could do remote viewing, which is able to see things far away and draw a picture or describe something, that's 100 miles away, like a building or something, to the exact, points of the building. And I think that's amazing. And I think more people should do that, right, Michael? I think it helps your spiritual journey, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was always told, and I really believe that everybody has a gift.
Yeah.
Everybody came here with a gift. And then it's not like you just wake up one day and you're a medium and you got spirits next to you and you're just
Exactly.
able to predict the future and everything else. It's something that once you learn you have that gift, it starts off slowly and then you have to learn and develop it. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
And
why it's a
so let me,
journey.
yeah, absolutely. And that's what everybody, it's like fast food, right? Everybody wants it now, now, now. Like, give me my spiritual journey now. And it's like, no, it's going to take months, years, maybe your entire lifetime, but open yourself to it. And it's only going to be good. So I got a question for you. I was just looking on your website and everything like that. The ancestorsfire.com. Do you guys do anything if some of my spooky friends who live in North Carolina who listen to this, if they reached out to you, do you ever like take them on a hike? Would you be willing to do that, or is that something you don't do anymore?
No, that's something we'd be willing to do. That's something that we're trying to develop and grow. We have not done one yet, to be fully
Okay.
transparent with other people.
Sure.
We've just done it ourselves, but that's something that we want to offer and do at some point. If somebody's willing to do it or wants to do it, we'd be happy to do it with them.
That would be great. And just getting ahead of ourselves here, what would you tell people, who would reach out to you about that, who may be like, hey, I'm not at your level, and I'm not willing to go out, but I hopefully in the future I will do that. But how do I start? Like, what would you tell someone like, okay, Michael, you and Rebecca sound awesome, and I would love to, do that, do a journey with you into the forest, do some hiking, and learn everything. But I'm not that level. How do I start?
The best advice that I can give on that would be find a way, whether it's meditation, that would be my biggest suggestion. But some people, everybody's different, first of all. So when you go into a situation where you want to start your journey, just remember that no matter what anybody tells you, you have your own individual journey. It's your journey, and what you put into it and how you do it is up to you. And what works for me, what works for Rebecca, we're two totally different people. She's not able to meditate. I'm able to meditate. She does her focus, her grounding is walking barefoot throughout the yard and talking with the animals and talking
Right.
with the trees. That's how
Right.
she gets her mind open. That's how she gets her mind cleared. Whereas I have to sit and meditate to get my mind open and my mind cleared. We have similar results, but we have different ways of getting there. So I would say, first of all, you may try one way that someone suggests to you, but that may not work for you, and not to give up on
Mhm.
that. You have to just learn how to open your mind. That's the biggest thing. And you've said this quite often, a couple times.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
have that open mind, first of all. And the other thing is you have to be able to deprogram your mind, not only open it, but you have to be deprogrammed. Everything that you've been taught, everything that the media, society,
Yeah.
everything that's been put out there, whether it could be true, it could be false, but that's what someone else is telling you. You have to
Yeah.
listen to your own voice, listen to your own inner self, and make a decision on which way you want to go.
Yeah. I love that. And the other thing I would add, and please, chime in on this, is yeah, you're gonna feel a little weird. It's gonna be a little embarrassing because you feel like, well, I'm in the woods and I'm talking to myself, or I'm talking to the trees, or man, what if someone sees me? Right? Like, who cares? Like, it's okay. you know, right? Wouldn't you say that, Michael? Like, it's okay if you just
It,
want to like say something to the forest, right?
it's
What
okay
what
to
can
be
you do?
different.
Yeah, right. And maybe yeah,
We're all
go ahead.
connected, but we're all different.
Yeah, right. So don't ever feel weird about that because, like, I will. What I'm learning right now, that I had a lot of trouble with is I had a lot of trouble with anger issues, and I bring this out to everyone, and depression. So I still suffer for depression and anger issues, and through therapy, through meditation, through some other things, it's really helped me to deal with it and not let things bother me as much, and to find how much I love myself and deal with it. And I'm not a huge hiker, but when I want to clear my mind, I do go out in the woods. And yes, I do kind of like reach out to the universe and say, "Hey, I'm struggling today. I could really need some help here." And you know what the funny thing, Michael, is usually there's like a calm that comes over me. Now, can I describe it? No, but it's like this calm to be like, it's okay. You're gonna be good. You're gonna be fine. Just be the best, person you can be, and don't let all this stuff of negativity get you down and get you angry, because it's not gonna help you. It's not gonna get you to where you need to be. Right?
Right. I mean, absolutely. I deal with self-doubt and lack of confidence sometimes.
Yeah.
And when I first started, I was like, okay, am I really hearing this? People going to think I'm stupid, or they're going to think I'm crazy,
Right. Yeah.
but who cares what people think? It's not about them. It's about
Yeah.
me and my journey. It's about me and my walk. It's
Yeah.
about me and
Yeah.
my growth and my development.
Yeah. I love that. That's so great. So, a couple questions before we wrap up here. What would you say? Because a lot of paranormal, and this is what I can't stand. And this is, like I said, even though I'm dealing with it, Michael, what I can't stand is paranormal investigators who are trying to get clicks, and they'll go out into the woods and they'll be like, ooh, there's that scary monster, or a ghost attacked me. And you're like, come on. Like, stop. Does that ever bug you sometimes? Like, you're like, guys, come on. You're making me look bad here.
Everybody has their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
I try to focus on how I do it. I want to make sure that I'm following my path and my journey, and making sure that if somebody's following me or going along that journey with me, I'm giving them the experience that is actually there before me. And I could take someone out on a journey and nothing could happen. And I would tell
Yep.
someone that ahead of time. I can't guarantee you or promise you anything is going to happen.
Yep.
Doesn't mean that something's not here, but if I'm not experiencing it, I'm not going to share it with you, and I'm not going to make something up just to give you an experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That is amazing. So, one of the last questions before I wrap up here: what would you say to paranormal investigators who are going out in the woods? Because I know a lot of paranormal investigators. They're like, They do houses, they do, and they kind of, it's the same old, right? They go to a prison, they go to a home, they go to a church, they go to whatever. And I always say to them, have you guys ever gone out in the woods or gone out to the, and they're like, nah, yeah, I don't know. We just don't kind of, they don't really have a reason why. So what would you say to a paranormal investigator who's going out into the forest, not to really look for anything, but to kind of stretch their mind a little bit to say, hey, it's just not contained in a building. It's everywhere. The paranormal is everywhere. You can find it anywhere you want.
I would say that what they're investigating inside the house is energy.
Mm.
And that energy exists everywhere you walk. And there's so much, this is such a large world, a large earth, that we do not know everything. We don't know where everything happened on the earth or in the forest. And that energy's out there. And there's so many things out there that we can learn from the ancestors, that we can learn from the spirits of the land. They're all out there through the forest. I believe, and I've done this, I believe you can go out to the forest and you could talk to a tree through an EVP session, or you could talk to the fae through an EVP session, or you could talk to an animal. You can do it telepathically. You can do it through EVP too. All that exists. All that's there. There's so much potential that we can learn from the forest. There's so much potential that we can learn from the trees, from the animals, from the ancestors, that we're just not. It's a totally different world. The spirit world exists, and there's so much that we can learn from it, and we're just barely tapping into it.
Yeah. I totally agree. Michael, I could talk to you for hours. This was amazing. I feel like I got to go out in the woods and do more hiking, and I gotta meditate a little bit more. And thank you for giving me this kind of boost that I needed. And I hopefully the boost for all you, my spooky friends listening out there. And Michael's amazing. But before we go, please tell my spooky friends, what's coming up. What do you got going on here in the next month or next year?
So right now I'm trying to get back out to the woods more. This summer I haven't got out as much as I wanted to, so I wanted to do some more EVP sessions out in the woods. I went over a little bit about the experience yesterday, but I want to get up on the rock at the top of the mountain and do one up there. Try to discover more about that portal. And I want to get out more into the cemeteries. I've done a couple. One of them I've posted already, and one I haven't yet. I've done a couple EVP sessions in cemeteries. And, that's one of the biggest places where you can learn history from, is going to a cemetery, learning from your ancestors. Just go and tour a cemetery. Just go and read some of the headstones there. And so I'm trying to do more EVP sessions there as well. So those are some of the things that I have going on right now.
Yeah, I love it. And like I said, I will put all the links and where you can find Michael and Rebecca on their social media. And like I said, they're still working out the hiking thing, but doesn't mean that you can't reach out to Michael and say like, hey, I'm going on my spiritual journey, and how do I do this, and where do I start? And please do, because right, Michael, I'm sure you would love to
Absolutely,
help
because
we
want to start it, but we got to have somebody that wants to learn with us, go through it with us. So we got to get it started.
Yes. So amazing, Michael. I would love to have you back on, later sometime to talk about if you find that portal or other things, because like I said, this was an amazing interview on my podcast. One of my favorites, because again, I think a lot of it gets pushed aside about, it's fun to be scared, like I said, and it's fun to get creeped out, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also part of knowing, okay, let's look at the other side. Let's look at going out there and connecting with the spirit world, and connecting with nature, connecting with your fellow human being, and, going on that journey, because it's only going to help you, down the line, where you're not going to have to deal with, hopefully, everybody deals with issues and everything like that. So, but hey, if it just helps you have a brighter day, so much the better, right, Mike?
That's right. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So again, like, thank you so much of taking time out today to talk to me. I truly appreciate it. And yeah, I'll definitely have you back on sometime, and we can talk about more of this.
No problem. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'd love to come back.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Again, you have a blessed day, and tell Rebecca hi, and tell her having a blessed day too.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.